transport ship touched down gently on the landing pad of the Galactic Peace Academy, a sprawling complex on the edge of the neutral zone. As the hatch hissed open, Jackson Carter stepped out into the brisk air of a new world, his eyes scanning the unfamiliar terrain. The Academy, known for training the elite forces of various interstellar civilizations, had never before hosted a human instructor. Jackson adjusted the strap of his duffel bag and made his way toward the main building. His footsteps echoed on the metal grating, blending with the distant hum of alien chatter. As he approached, two figures detached themselves from the crowd and approached him. "Mr. Carter, I'm Dean Selnari, and this is Commander Tholrax," said the taller of the two, an Eridani with translucent skin and a composed air. "Pleased to meet you both," Jackson replied, extending a hand. Tholrax, a burly Tarkin with scales that shimmered in the sunlight, nodded, but didn't reciprocate the handshake. "Your reputation precedes you, Mr. Carter. We're eager to see if human tactics can indeed complement our curriculum." Jackson smiled, undeterred by the cold reception. "I'm here to learn as much as to teach. I hope my experiences can offer some new perspectives." The trio walked towards the Academy's main hall, passing groups of students who paused to stare at the human joining their ranks. Murmurs filled the air, a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Inside the dean's office, Jackson was briefed on his duties. "Your first session is tomorrow," Selnari explained. "You'll be addressing a cohort of mixed species. They're some of our top tacticians in training. Impress them, and you'll have an easier time here." "That's the plan," Jackson affirmed, checking the datapad that Selnari handed him. It contained the student profiles and their respective combat specialties. Later, at the faculty lounge, Jackson met with other instructors, who varied in their welcome. "So, a human, eh?" remarked a grizzled instructor named Krez. "Never thought I'd see the day. What can you teach us that we don't already know?" Jackson, ever the diplomat, responded with a grin. "Maybe how to win a battle when you're outgunned and outmanned. Humans have a knack for pulling victory from the jaws of defeat." Krez chuckled, the sound gruff. "I'll believe it when I see it, Carter." The following morning, Jackson entered the lecture hall where dozens of eyes, some with irises split by vertical slits, others glowing with bioluminescent light, watched him take center stage. "Good morning," Jackson started, his voice steady. "I know many of you are wondering what a human can teach you about combat. Humans might not have the best ships or the biggest guns, but we do have one thing: ingenuity." A skeptical murmur ran through the crowd. "Today we're going to discuss asymmetrical warfare," Jackson continued, igniting a hologram of historical human battles. "Let's dive into the Battle of Ceres Point, where 500 humans held off a fleet of 5,000 through guerrilla tactics and environmental advantages." As Jackson detailed the strategies used, the room's initial skepticism gave way to intrigued whispers. It was clear that while the road ahead would be challenging, Jackson's unique insights might just bridge the gap between human intuition and alien technology. The next morning, the world woke to a sense of dread and urgency. News networks ran non-stop coverage of the alien ships, now stationed ominously above major cities across the globe. Governments scrambled to respond, and the airwaves were filled with calls for calm and resilience. In Washington, D.C., the temporary command center was buzzing with activity. Jack, Tom, and Mike sat around a cluttered table strewn with maps, digital tablets, and cups of coffee gone cold. The room was charged with a palpable tension as military strategists and scientists worked together to form a coherent response. "All right, everyone, listen up," General Martinez, the appointed head of the task force, called out, commanding the room's attention. "We've established that the aliens haven't made any direct hostile moves yet, but their intentions are anything but clear. We need to prepare for every possibility." Jack leaned in, his engineering mind already turning over the possibilities. "General, if we can get our hands on any of their tech, I'm confident we can begin to understand, and maybe replicate, some of their capabilities." General Martinez nodded. "That's the spirit, Harper. I want you and your team to focus on that. We've managed to bring down a smaller scout ship intact near Denver. I'm sending you there to see what you can salvage." Tom, ever the pragmatist, chimed in. "What about defenses, General? If they decide to attack, we need to be ready to protect the civilian population." "That's our top priority, Walters," the general assured him. "We're mobilizing all available resources, but understanding their technology could give us the edge we desperately need." Mike looked around at the assembled team, a mix of military personnel and civilian experts. "Let's get to it then. The sooner we understand what we're dealing with, the better our chances of defending our home." With a plan in action, the trio geared up and headed to Denver. The journey was tense, with military checkpoints and nervous citizens making the roads chaotic. Upon arriving at the crash site, the scene was like something out of a movie. Burned-out trees, a deep crater, and the alien ship, largely intact, surrounded by armed guards. "Jack, Tom, this is what we trained for," Mike said, clapping them on the back as they donned their hazard suits. "Let's see what secrets this thing holds." Inside the ship, the technology was unlike anything they had ever seen, sleek, efficient, and glowing with an eerie light. Jack's hands moved over alien consoles, his mind racing as he tried to decipher their functions. "Look at this," Jack exclaimed, pointing to a panel that seemed to control the ship's propulsion. "This is advanced, but not incomprehensible. We can learn from this, maybe even adapt it for our use." Tom took detailed photos, documenting everything for the teams back at the command center. "Every bit of data counts," he reminded them, his camera flashing repeatedly. Hours passed as they worked tirelessly, extracting components and data. As night fell, they returned to the base camp, exhausted but exhilarated by the progress they'd made. Back at the command center, General Martinez greeted them. "Good work, gentlemen. Let's see what our scientists can make of your findings. You may have just given us the first real hope since this nightmare began." As they settled down to rest, the weight of their responsibility lingered heavily on them. They were not just fighting for their country now, but for the entire planet. Tomorrow, they would dive back into the alien technology, each day learning more, each discovery a step closer to understanding how to defend their world. The call to arms had been sounded, and humanity was rising to meet it. The next week at the Galactic Peace Academy was one of rigorous testing and challenging encounters. Jackson, pleased with the progress in class discussions and the growing interest in human tactics, decided it was time for a more severe test of the students' adaptability and strategic thinking. "Today's exercise will involve a live-action simulation," Jackson announced to the class, who gathered around him with palpable anticipation. "You'll be split into mixed teams, each containing various species, and given a simple objective. Capture the flag located in a heavily fortified area. However, you'll face unpredictable elements and real-time decisions. This is not just about combat. It's about leadership, teamwork, and using limited resources effectively." The students murmured among themselves, the challenge stirring a mix of excitement and anxiety. Jackson watched as they geared up, handing out the equipment that was even more rudimentary than before. Basic laser rifles with limited range and no automatic targeting, reminiscent of old Earth's paintball guns. As they headed to the simulation arena, a sprawling holographic field capable of mimicking any terrain and weather condition, Jackson programmed the settings. He chose a dense forest environment with intermittent fog patches, a setting that would force the students to rely more on their senses and less on technology. Vrex approached Jackson, his demeanor serious. "Instructor Carter, in the previous session, I found it difficult to adjust to the lack of information. How do you suggest we handle these conditions?" Jackson clapped him on the shoulder. "Use your natural senses, Vrex. Communicate constantly with your team, and remember, sometimes the best technology you have is your brain and your instincts." As the simulation began, chaos ensued almost immediately. The teams, hidden by the thick fog and dense underbrush, moved cautiously. Jackson observed from the control room, noting each team's strategy. Some moved stealthily, others charged foolishly. Halfway through the exercise, Jackson introduced a curveball, an unexpected enemy drone strike that forced the teams to scatter and seek new cover. This twist tested the team's ability to regroup and reassess their strategies under pressure. Vrex's team, caught off guard, initially scattered, but Vrex managed to rally them. They used hand signals and low-tech devices to communicate their positions without alerting the drones or rival teams. Slowly they advanced, using the dense foliage and fog to their advantage, a technique that Jackson had discussed in one of his lectures about guerrilla warfare. As the exercise drew to a close, Rex's team reached the flag. Just as they were about to claim victory, another team launched a surprise attack. The ensuing skirmish was frantic and messy, but ultimately, Rex's team prevailed, securing the flag with a combination of brute force and clever diversion tactics. After the simulation, the debriefing was intense. "Today, you learned the importance of being adaptable and resourceful." Jackson addressed the class, who listened intently, their faces flushed from the exertion and excitement. "You've started to think like warriors who don't depend solely on superior technology but on superior wit and resolve." Vrex, now more vocal, shared his thoughts. "This exercise was a real eye-opener. we often overlook basic instincts and simple strategies in favor of complex technology. It's clear now how these can sometimes be just as effective. The session ended with the students more respectful of human combat tactics, their initial skepticism replaced by a budding admiration for Jackson's teachings. They had begun to see the value in embracing a broader spectrum of warfare tactics, acknowledging that there might be merit in learning from a species as young and seemingly primitive as humans. As the weeks progressed, Jackson Carter observed a subtle shift in the atmosphere of his classes. The students, once dismissive of human tactics, now engaged eagerly, their previous reservations giving way to a genuine curiosity. Sensing a turning point, Jackson decided it was time to deepen their understanding of human history and its implications for warfare. For today's lesson, we're going to explore several pivotal battles from Earth's history, Jackson announced as the students settled into their seats. He activated the holographic projector, which displayed vivid scenes of ancient and modern Earth conflicts. We'll start with the Battle of Thermopylae, ancient Greece, where a small force of Spartans held off a vastly larger Persian army. It's a classic example of using terrain to your advantage, Jackson explained, pointing to the narrow pass where the Spartans had made their stand. The students watched, fascinated as the simulation depicted the Spartan phalanx holding firm against waves of Persian soldiers. The strategic use of the narrow pass, which neutralized the numerical advantage of the Persian army, sparked discussions among the students about similar strategies in their own planet's histories. Next, Jackson fast-forwarded to World War II, focusing on the D-Day landings. Here we see a combination of surprise, overwhelming force, and intricate planning. The Allies' ability to mislead the Germans about the landing site was crucial, he said, highlighting the deceptive operations that preceded the actual invasion. Vrex, who had taken a keen interest in human resilience and adaptability, raised his hand. Instructor Carter, these tactics rely heavily on understanding and manipulating the enemy's expectations. Is this a common theme in human warfare? Absolutely, Jackson nodded. Humans often say that all warfare is based on deception. That's from Sun Tzu, a military strategist from Earth's ancient history. Encouraged by the students' engagement, Jackson introduced a more recent conflict, the Vietnam War. This time, let's focus on guerrilla warfare tactics used by the Viet Cong against American forces. It's a stark lesson in how a technologically inferior force can leverage its knowledge of local terrain and unconventional warfare techniques to confront a superior power. As the holograms illustrated hit-and-run attacks and the use of booby traps, the students began to draw parallels between the Viet Cong's methods and tactics from their own cultures. This led to a lively debate about the ethics and effectiveness of guerrilla tactics, moderated by Jackson, who guided the discussion with probing questions and historical insights. At the end of the class, Jackson assigned the students a project. I want each of you to prepare a presentation on a conflict from your world. Explain the tactics used, the outcome, and what lessons could be learned from it. Think about how these might apply not just to military conflicts, but to broader strategic thinking. As the students left the classroom, buzzing with ideas and discussions, Jackson felt a sense of accomplishment. He had not only introduced his students to human military history, but had also encouraged them to see the value in examining their own histories through a new lens. The impact of these lessons was profound, not just in terms of academic understanding, but in fostering a deeper respect among the students for one another's cultures and histories. They began to see Jackson not just as a representative of a formerly underestimated species, but as a skilled educator who had much to teach them about the complexities of warfare and peace. Mid-semester at the Galactic Peace Academy brought an unexpected challenge that would test both Jackson Carter's teachings and the adaptability of his students. An alarm blared early one morning, jolting the campus into high alert. The threat was immediate. A rogue alien faction, opposed to the intermingling of species and sharing of military tactics, had launched a surprise attack on the academy. Jackson was quickly summoned to the command center, where Dean Selnari and several military leaders were gathered. The holographic screens showed live feeds of the academy's perimeter, where energy blasts lit the sky. The attackers, using advanced cloaking technology, had bypassed the academy's early warning systems. Carter, we need your expertise, Dean Selnari stated, her voice tense. Our standard defense protocols are failing. The attackers are using a strategy we haven't seen before. Jackson stepped up to the tactical display, his mind racing. We need to change our approach. Let's deploy small mobile defense squads around the perimeter. Use hit-and-run tactics. Draw them out, then pull back. It's risky, but it'll disrupt their coordination. The plan was swiftly put into action. Jackson himself led one of the squads, consisting of some of his top students, including Vrex. As they maneuvered through the Academy's grounds, Jackson communicated via a low-tech comms device, avoiding the faction's signal jammers. "Remember, stay fluid, move after every engagement, don't give them a target," Jackson instructed as they ambushed a group of attackers, using the natural landscape and the Academy's architecture to their advantage. The combat was intense and chaotic. At one point, Vrex's quick thinking saved the squad from a flanking maneuver, showcasing his growth and understanding of the human tactics Jackson had taught. The squads managed to hold the attackers at bay, but it was clear that a sustained defense like this was not viable. Jackson made a call to regroup for a counteroffensive. Using a combination of decoys and a centralized strike force, they targeted the enemy's command unit, which they had identified from the pattern of the attacks. With precise execution, the counteroffensive pushed the attackers back. The rogue faction, unprepared for the resilience and unconventional tactics of the Academy's defenders, began to retreat. In the aftermath of the battle, the campus was battered but secure. Many were injured, but thanks to the swift response, there were no fatalities among the students and staff. Dean Zelnari, along with the rest of the Academy's leadership, praised Jackson and the students for their bravery and quick adaptation. The success of human tactics in a real-world scenario solidified Jackson's reputation and, more importantly, demonstrated the effectiveness of integrating diverse combat strategies. As the students helped in the recovery efforts, there was a newfound respect and camaraderie among them. They had faced a common enemy and had prevailed by embracing each other's strengths and the lessons learned from their human instructor. This incident was a turning point, not only for the Academy's defensive strategies, but also in how the students viewed each other and the value of their training. They realized that in the vast and unpredictable galaxy, the blending of knowledge from all cultures was not just beneficial, it was necessary for survival. In the weeks following the attack on the Galactic Peace Academy, the atmosphere among the students shifted palpably. The shared experience of defending their campus had forged bonds that transcended species and cultural boundaries. With Jackson Carter's human tactics proving instrumental in their success, the students began to approach their studies with a newfound respect for diversity and strategic thinking. As the semester progressed, Jackson noticed the students integrating lessons from the attack into their daily discussions and training exercises. The classroom became a melting pot of ideas, with students eager to blend techniques from their homeworlds with those they had learned from Earth. One day, Jackson organized a workshop titled Strategies of Integration. The goal was to facilitate an exchange of personal experiences and tactical knowledge, fostering an environment where students could teach as well as learn. "Today, I'm not your instructor," Jackson announced as the session began. "Each of you has unique insights that could benefit us all. I want you to think about a situation where a specific strategy from your culture could have changed the outcome of our recent conflict." The students formed small groups, buzzing with enthusiasm. Vrex, taking a leadership role within his group, shared a Tarkin maneuver designed for close-quarter combat in low visibility, an adaptation that would have been perfect during the night of the attack. Meanwhile, a soft-spoken Jinthian named Lyra described her people's use of sound-based devices to create confusion and disorientation among opponents, a tactic that could have added another layer to their defense strategy. As each group presented their ideas, Jackson encouraged them to consider how these could be hybridized with human guerrilla tactics. The exercise not only broadened the students' tactical horizons, but also deepened their appreciation for each other's backgrounds. Feeling the momentum, Jackson decided it was time to test their collaborative skills in a new simulation. He designed a scenario that incorporated various alien and human tactics into a cohesive battle plan. The students would need to defend a virtual outpost from a sophisticated AI enemy that adapted over time, requiring constant innovation and integration of their diverse approaches. During the simulation, Jackson watched with pride as the students communicated seamlessly, each bringing their strengths to the forefront. Rex's team executed a series of feints and ambushes while Lyra's group set up a network of sonic traps that effectively disoriented the AI's drones. The debriefing that followed was full of energetic discussion. "This exercise showed how powerful we can be when we combine our knowledge," Jackson remarked. "Diversity in our tactics isn't just beneficial, it's essential." The lesson resonated deeply with the students. They left the simulation room not just as classmates but as comrades, a unified force enriched by their differences. The culture of mutual respect and collaboration that Jackson fostered was becoming the cornerstone of their education and a model for the Academy's future. This new ethos was not lost on the Academy's administration either. Dean Selnari, impressed by the profound impact of Jackson's teachings, proposed expanding the curriculum to include more intercultural tactical studies, ensuring that all future cadets could benefit from the same insights that had transformed this class. Institution, catalyzing changes in how tactics were taught and integrated across the curriculum. With the semester drawing to a close, Jackson and his students embarked on a capstone project that would encapsulate all they had learned about integrating diverse tactical approaches into cohesive strategies. Your final challenge, Jackson announced to his class, will be to develop and execute a comprehensive defense plan for a theoretical multi-species colony. You'll need to consider various environmental, technological, and cultural factors to create a plan that's adaptable and robust against a series of simulated threats. The students, now seasoned in adapting and combining disparate combat techniques, formed mixed-species teams. Each team was assigned a different environment, ranging from arid deserts to dense, fog-covered moons. This variety was designed to push their strategic creativity to the limits. As the teams set to work, Jackson circulated among them, offering guidance and challenging their assumptions. He noticed a particular enthusiasm in a group led by Vrex and Lyra, who had chosen a volatile oceanic planet known for its unpredictable weather and elusive sea creatures. This environment could benefit from Tarkin subaquatic tactics, Vrex suggested, discussing positioning sensors below the water surface to detect approaching enemies. Lyra added, and we can use Ginthian soundwave technology to create a perimeter defense that uses the water to amplify the effects. Jackson nodded, impressed. Excellent integration, but consider the human element. How can guerrilla tactics be adapted here? The group discussed using decoy transmissions to mimic colony activities in different locations, a method derived from Earth's historical naval guerrilla warfare. This idea of misdirection complemented their other strategies, adding a layer of psychological warfare to their plan. As the project day approached, the Academy buzzed with anticipation. Dean Zelnari and several high-ranking military officials from various planets attended, eager to see how the students had synthesized their learning from the course. Each group presented their defense strategy, employing detailed simulations to demonstrate the effectiveness of their integrated approaches. The innovative solutions displayed not only reflected their deep understanding of tactical integration, but also their ability to anticipate and counteract complex threats. Vrex and Lyra's team received particular commendation for their innovative use of environmental factors and technology, showcasing how well they had absorbed Jackson's teachings. The work you've done here is groundbreaking, Dean Selnari addressed the students after the presentations. You've not only learned from each other, but have pushed the boundaries of what we thought was possible in military strategy. As the students celebrated their success, Jackson felt a profound sense of pride. He had come to the Academy as an outsider, doubted by many, but was leaving a lasting impact on how future leaders would think about and engage in combat. The final class was a mix of celebration and reflective discussion, with students sharing how the course had changed their perceptions and prepared them for real-world challenges. The respect and camaraderie among them were palpable, a testament to the transformative power of education and open-mindedness. Jackson ended the course with a simple message. Remember, the greatest weapon you have isn't found in an armory. It's your ability to think critically, adapt, and work together, drawing on the strengths of diverse perspectives. Keep these lessons with you, wherever you go. As the students departed, ready to bring their knowledge back to their homeworlds, Jackson knew that the seeds he had planted here would grow into a legacy of innovation and cooperation, echoing across the galaxy for years to come. The graduation ceremony at the Galactic Peace Academy was set against the backdrop of a tranquil sunset, casting a warm glow over the assembly of students, faculty, and distinguished guests from various star systems. The air was filled with a sense of accomplishment and the quiet anticipation of new beginnings. Jackson Carter stood among the faculty, his chest swelling with pride as he watched his students, dressed in their ceremonial uniforms, take their places. Dean Zelnari opened the ceremony with a speech that highlighted the achievements of the graduating class, particularly noting their innovative approaches to tactical warfare and defense strategies. This class has set a new standard, she declared, her voice resonant across the crowded amphitheater. They have demonstrated that true strength lies not only in the might of one's arsenal, but in the diversity of one's strategies and the unity of one's team. As the students were called up one by one to receive their diplomas, cheers and applause echoed through the air. When it was Rex's turn, his confident stride and broad smile reflected his journey from skepticism to leadership, much of it shaped by Jackson's mentorship. Following the formalities, Jackson was invited to give a closing speech. He stepped up to the podium, looking out at the sea of faces, each from different corners of the galaxy, each with their own story and potential. Today marks an end, but also a beginning, Jackson started, his voice steady and clear. Over the past year, we've challenged each other, learned from each other, and grown together. You've all shown incredible adaptability and courage, not just in simulations, but in real conflict. You've embraced new ideas, blending them with your own to create something greater than the sum of its parts. He paused, his gaze sweeping over the students. Remember, the galaxy is vast and full of challenges. As you go forth, carry with you the lessons of this academy. Not just the tactics and strategies, but the spirit of collaboration and respect for diverse perspectives. These will be your tools as much as any weapon. Jackson's words resonated with the students, many nodding in agreement, their faces alight with resolve and determination. In closing, Jackson continued, I urge you to think of peace as a dynamic, active state. It's something you have to create, maintain, and defend, sometimes all at once. Be the leaders who build bridges. Be the tacticians who think not only of battles but of the enduring peace that follows. And always be the kind of warriors who fight for a galaxy where unity and diversity are not just accepted, but celebrated. As the ceremony concluded, the graduates threw their caps into the air, a universal symbol of their achievement and the boundless possibilities ahead. They gathered around Jackson, expressing their gratitude and sharing their plans for the future. Many were heading back to their home planets, tasked with leadership roles in their respective military or diplomatic corps, while others were pursuing further specialized training. For Jackson, the end of the ceremony marked a bittersweet moment. He felt a deep sense of accomplishment in having influenced these young leaders, but also a poignant farewell to a group that had become like family. As the graduates dispersed, Dean Selnari approached Jackson. Your work here has changed the academy, she said, offering him a handshake. Thank you, Jackson, for everything. Jackson smiled, accepting her thanks. It was my honor, Dean. I believe they'll make a difference out there. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the now empty amphitheater. Jackson took one last look around, his heart full. The seeds of change he had planted here would continue to grow, carried across the stars by his students. In their diverse hands, the future of the galaxy looked brighter than ever.